Topic here is Atascadero State Hospital. If you do a Google search for this, you will probably see a reference to this being the Dachau for queers, Dachau being a reference to a Nazi concentration camp. So you should have an understanding of this timeline. I've already addressed this in a prior screencast, so feel free to take a look at the one from Stonewall, as well as some of the issues taking place impacting the gay community in the 1940s into the 1950s. So here we see the mental disorder argument for homosexuality, and this is one of the things that Atascadero State Hospital is going to address. This facility was located in California, so you will be asked to complete a reading. Here we see the text of the reading and just some of the data that I thought was important for our purpose here, where they talk about the sexual psychopath, punishable by death, abnormal sexual desire. This is going to be a gray area. I don't necessarily know what that means. We'll see if the reading can kind of shed some light on that. Established in 1954, and 60% are classified as a sexual psychopath. That doesn't mean that all homosexuals are considered a sexual psychopath. Keep in mind, you see this chart here where we have included in the category is a child molester and an exhibitionist. So that would be included in this one here. Excluded in the category, we see the rapist and the ordinary homosexual, the one that is not a menace. I don't necessarily know what that means, but it's probably not going to be good. So the individuals going into this facility are going to get a 90-day observation period, an evaluation by the staff, as well as probation. So these are individuals that have been found guilty of committing some sort of sexual crime, sexual deviancy crime, and you will see hospitalization also being one of the requirements. Now we're looking at the issue of why, or the question here. So here they talk about this being motivated by an abnormal desire rather than a failure to resist normal temptation. Mental disorder is implied. I don't know what any of that means, but I kind of know what that means because it seems to be a gray area language. That is one of those things that play out like you know it when you see it. I don't know if that's going to be good. I don't know if that's going to be bad, but I definitely know I wouldn't want to be in a position where this is going to impact me. I would like to see a clear-cut explanation. Anyway, so let's kind of get back to some of the items from the readings. Like I said, you definitely want to take a look at the reading. Here I've underlined some of the sections, some of the language that we kind of already addressed, whether it being a menace to others, the 90-day observation. So this is the source where the information pretty much comes from. So for our purpose, you want to define sexual psychopath as according to the reading, figure out how it was treated, and what role did child molestation play in sexual deviancy. So already mentioned the homosexual Dachau. There are reports of lobotomies being performed on homosexuals to make them not gay. So I guess here, if we're looking at the brain, we're seeing the ice pick lobotomy going through the eye to remove parts of the brain. So that tells us if you believe that there is a part of the brain that makes someone a homosexual, I would say then you are under the belief that this is about nature. So this is about biology. I don't necessarily know how these ideas coexist. Is somebody homosexual born that way, or is society going to make someone a homosexual? What I do know, why I think this is significant, is if they're going to perform this procedure by removing white matter from the brain, I think that would be confirmation that there is some belief that this is something people are born with. Homosexuality as a mental disorder. So now they're looking at this particular issue here. And we already addressed how the Psychiatric Association is going to label this a mental illness, which is going to be problematic for the society. And this is going to be challenged by these three individuals. Here we see Barbara Giddings, Frank Kameny. So there's Giddings, a Mattachine Society member, Daughters of Bilitis member right here. And of course, we see the doctor who is advocating on behalf of the gay population, trying to get the classification of a mental disorder removed, but has to hide his face because he doesn't want to be accused of being a homosexual or working with homosexuals. arguments against homosexuality. So here I just took the pyramid of hate, which as you move up, you see the act of genocide. And then here we have the vicious cycle. So with regard to how these work and why I decided to include those items here, if we're making a joke, we're at the bias part here, or individual acts where it talks about bullying. You're beating somebody up because of their race or their sexual orientation. But as we move up, we start to see discrimination, where you start to see laws, where you start to see big institutions, and Atascadero seems to fit within this category over here, as well as working hand in hand with the laws. Bias motivated violence, when you have large scale orders to target individuals, you're moving up. And then the last phase would be genocide. So if you're wondering how this would work, this would be like the Nuremberg laws in Germany, where they separated Germans from Jews. Then the state, of course, supporting acts of violence against the Jewish population with Kristallnacht, and eventually you get to genocide. So the question here is, how far is the United States moving up the pyramid of hate, considering Atascadero, Stonewall, and some of the other acts of violence, laws. And we could look at the vicious cycle. So you have prejudice and discrimination, which seems to be the issues being addressed here. And then that leads to social disadvantages. And the social disadvantages could be the discrimination. They're the laws that are in place, but they are dependent on the prejudice and discrimination. Like, what justifies a social disadvantage? Well, the social disadvantage is justified because of our belief system. And then, of course, that creates a belief in inferiority, which is probably why you see so many homosexuals committing suicide. It's a result of the treatment of the society. Here we just see a zoomed in version of those two. So in class, we're going to watch the PSA and possibly some of these other sources here that will kind of act as placement on this particular chart. Like the gay PSA definitely seems to be somewhere in these areas right here. And the fact that they're using this in schools as a public service announcement, I think they're moving up the pyramid here with regard to this particular population. So now we're going to address the reading. What issues continue to come up regarding homosexuality? Be historic in your response. Then we're going to transition to the film, Don't Ask, Don't Tell.